When referees make a mistake, it can change the course of a game. Sometimes it can change the course of footballing history. From booking a player 3 times through to the kinds of decisions a blind person would get right, I'm here to take a look at the worst mistakes referees have ever made in football, starting with one of the most shocking. If you leave a player unconscious with 2 missing teeth, 3 cracked ribs and damaged vertebrae from what we'd struggle to call a tackle, then you'd probably expect to see at least a red card or maybe an arrest. Yet when Schumacher went full roadhouse mode in the 1982 World Cup against France, the referee didn't give anything. Maybe he preferred his snails in the garden. The English don't traditionally do well in World Cups, and this extends to referees as well. Like the national team, Graham Poll was sent home early from the 2006 World Cup. This was for a shocking mistake. He managed to show 3 yellow cards to Croatian defender Josip Simonic, resulting in the referee packing his bags early and being sent home from the tournament. Believe it or not, Poll put the second yellow down as going to a member of the opposite team, using his foolproof colour-coded system that made him look like a fool. Despite a distinguished career, this is the thing he'll be remembered for, along with an incident we'll look at later. But at least he was able to tell the time. Kind of. With Mali leading Tunisia 1-0 at AFCON 2021, Zambian ref Janny Sikazwe decided to twice blow his whistle for full time before the clock had even reached 90 minutes. He blew up in the 85th minute, played on, only to finish the game in the 89th minute instead. Looks like he just wanted to get home for his dinner. The teams went back to the dressing room on the second mistake, even though there was time on the clock. The players were told to get back to the pitch to complete the game, with Tunisia refusing to leave the dressing room, and the result stood. The reason that was given for this timekeeping blunder was heat stroke. Someone should have told the referee of a tournament in Africa that it was going to be hot. Our next referee helped to decide the title in Turkey. In September 1986, defending Turkish champions Besiktas were being held 0-0 at Ankara until referee Ahmet Akcay pulled off a fantastic finish with his face and deflected a wayward shot into the net. He allowed the goal to stand, and it gave the hosts a surprise victory. It was a huge moment because Besiktas would finish the season only 1 point behind champions Galatasaray, all thanks to this ref. Goal line technology was brought in because of mistakes like our next one. England, back in 1966, were helped by the fact that the linesman thought Geoff Hurst's second goal crossed the line. But 44 years later, karma struck in a big way, when Frank Lampard was denied this goal. It was enough to distract everyone from the fact that Germany were battering the 3 Lions at the time. It was to be entered into the Argos catalogue-sized book of reasons why England have been robbed at major tournaments, overlooking the massive footnote that they weren't good enough. We all get players mixed up sometimes. The difference is, we're not sending them off. With Chelsea already leading 2-0 against Arsenal in 2014, things got worse for the Gunners, when Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain saved a shot with his hand to concede a penalty. Referee Marriner rightly showed a red card. Only issue was, it was to the wrong player. He showed it to Kieran Gibbs instead, despite the Ox telling the ref it was him. Marriner sheepishly apologised for the mistaken identity after the game, presumably claiming that he doesn't think all Arsenal players look alike, and some of his best friends are Arsenal players. We've talked about goals that were goals and weren't given. What about goals that never existed but were given? This infamous ghost goal came in 2008, when Watford were left angrier than a Man City accountant being asked to hand over his books, as ref Stuart Atwell confused almost everyone by pointing to the centre circle for no reason. His linesman said that he had seen the ball cross the line, but it wasn't even close. Adding insult to injury, the ref then sent off Watford's AD Boothroyd for complaining. Despite this bizarre phantom goal and being down to 10 men, the Hornets managed to take the lead with 2 goals, only to be pegged back with a penalty to draw the game and frantically Google Atwell's address. Wolf Dieter Ahlenfelder made our next howler, but at least he had a great excuse for doing it. He admitted to getting smashed on beer and schnapps before the game, saying, "We are men, we don't drink Fanta." What a lad. He was only 3 games into his refereeing career in the Bundesliga when, during a meeting between Werder Bremen and Hanover in 1975, he blew the whistle for half-time after just 32 minutes of action. Maybe he was the inspiration for our earlier AFCON ref. The linesman corrected him, but clearly he was desperate for a kebab to soak up the booze, because he still made it only as far as 43 minutes 30 seconds before deciding to head in for a breather. Back to our favourite ref who can't count to 2 now, Graham Poll. He made himself an unpopular man among Everton fans in the year 2000 when he made a terrible call to stop the Toffees from claiming a memorable victory over Merseyside rivals Liverpool. With the score 0-0 right at the end of the game, Reds goalkeeper Sander Westerveld booted a free kick into Don Hutchinson's back, and the ball trickled into the net. As this was happening, Pole blew for full time even though there was still stoppage time left on the clock. He must have been keen to get back home for catchphrase. The next refereeing performance was so bad that it led to calls the game was fixed. Not just from that fat bloke behind you in the stands who says this every minute of every game you watch. Ecuadorian ref Moreno became public enemy number 1 in Italy after a series of awful decisions that saw them heading out of the 2002 World Cup by joint host South Korea. He gave the Red Devils a soft penalty, showed Hwang Song-hong yellow for a challenge that he later said deserved a red, overlooked an elbow in the face of Alessandro Del Piero inside the box and a boot on Paolo Maldini's head, sent off Francesco Totti for diving when he should have been given a penalty, and ruled out Tomasi's would-be golden goal in extra time for offside. Apart from that, he had a great game. Goalkeeper Roy Carroll owes a lot to Rob Lewis. So do FIFA, because at least it shows Lampard's goal wasn't an isolated incident. Tottenham midfielder Pedro Mendes scored a long-range stoppage-time winner against Manchester United in 2005 with the help of Carroll, or at least he thought he did. The goalkeeper desperately scrambled the ball back into play after it crossed the line, but linesman Rob Lewis didn't see it. Lewis would say there was nothing I could have done differently apart from run faster than Linford Christie. Some would argue that using his eyes would have helped. There's no doubting that Thierry Henry was a brilliant footballer, but he was a great cheat as well. Ireland's 2010 World Cup playoff against France in Paris was in the balance at 1-1, when Thierry Henry clearly controlled the ball with his hand, not once but twice, to set up William Gallas's extra-time winner. This sent the French to South Africa at Ireland's expense. After the second leg, Henry admitted to Irish defender Richard Dunn that he'd handled the ball, and the Irish FA campaigned to FIFA that they should take France's place at the tournament. But the hand of Frog stood to propel the French to the glory of getting knocked out in the group stages in South Africa. But this is a tiny handball that got missed in comparison to the granddaddy of them all. How does a 5'5" striker outjump a 6-foot keeper? This is how. Diego Maradona's infamous handball for Argentina, which knocked England out of the 1986 World Cup quarter-finals, is one of the most high-profile refereeing gaffes of all time. Tunisian official Albin Nasser later blamed his assistant referee for missing the obvious handball, claiming they shared authority on decisions. Nice that, like all other industries, referees are also perfectly happy to throw their co-workers under the bus. Speaking of being thrown under the bus, this next challenge that got missed had all the force of being smashed by a double-decker. Manchester City's Ben Thatcher smashed Portsmouth midfielder, that man again, Pedro Mendes, in the face with his elbow during their 2006 Premier League meeting, in a brutal challenge. The Portuguese midfielder doesn't get much luck, does he? He was knocked out and needed oxygen, but Thatcher was given a caution by Dermot Gallagher, who must have got confused and thought he was refereeing Muay Thai boxing. The FA later righted the wrong by banning the City player for 8 matches. This wasn't much consolation to Mendes, who ended up in hospital, rather than Gallagher, who needed to be in the same building for an eye transplant.